It was a Sunday morning like any other, the kind where the world feels soft and slow. Birds chirped, my coffee steamed, and my old golden retriever, Rusty, snored by the back door. I was in my robe, settling onto the porch swing with the newspaper, when a thump of music broke the quiet. Not just any music full-on, bass-heavy wedding reception noise, the kind that shakes your chest. I figured it was a neighbor's party, no big deal, until I stepped outside and saw it. My backyard, my pool, my patio transformed into someone else's dream wedding. A bride floated in my pool, her veil drifting like a jellyfish. A groom in a tuxedo waved a champagne glass, yelling at a DJ to crank it up. Rose petals blanketed my patio, folding chairs lined the grass, and a four-tiered cake sat proudly near my barbecue grill. Balloons bobbed, a photo booth hummed, and a chalkboard sign read, "Welcome to the union of Ethan and Lily." Waiters in black vests weaved through guests in pastel dresses and shiny shoes, offering appetizers. And not one person had asked me, Tom Bennett, the guy whose name is on the deed, if this was okay. I stood there, coffee mug in hand, mouth open, like I'd stumbled into a movie set. Then she appeared, Maureen, the HOA president, striding toward me like she owned the neighborhood. She had a bulldog's jaw, a headset, a clipboard, and a smile sharp enough to cut steel. Before I could speak, she shoved a roll of paper towels at me. "Oh, Tom, perfect timing. The drink station's leaking. Handle it." Then she spun away, barking at the DJ. I didn't move. Not because I was stunned, though, but because the sheer nerve of it hit me like a slap. She didn't ask. She didn't hint. She just took. I watched as guests used my bathroom, snapped selfies with my garden gnome, and let their kids cannonball off my DVYing board. I'd paid to resurface that pool last summer. I paid the bills that kept it sparkling. Yet Maureen had decided it was her personal event space. My hand shook as I poured another coffee, not from anger, but from a slow-burning question. Who thinks they can hijack someone's home like this? I dug out my property deed, unrolled the survey map. Clear as day, the backyard, pool, and patio were mine. The HOA had access to the front road, nothing more. No shared usage, no event clauses. Just my land, my rules. Maureen, though, was GIVYing a speech by the pool, gushing about our beautiful community and how proud she was to host the first-ever neighborhood ceremony. Guests clapped. A drone buzzed overhead, filming her moment of glory. Then she saw me by the fence and said into the mic, "A big thanks to Tom for lending us his stunning property." More applause. I didn't smile. I nodded once, slow and deliberate, and walked away. 30 years in the Army taught me one thing. Never fight when your enemy thinks they've won. Let them dig their own grave. The party stretched into the night. Cars clogged my street. A catering truck blocked my driveway. Someone spilled wine on my stone path. Maureen's husband rearranged my patio chairs for a dance floor. I watched from my upstairs window, tallying every trespass. The final straw came after darkroomsmen in boxers, DVYing into my pool, splashing and shouting. Maureen sat under a rented gazebo, sipping wine like a queen. That was it. This wasn't a party anymore. It was a declaration of war, and I was ready to fight back quietly, ruthlessly, with every tool at my disposal. Before sunrise, I started. I installed high-def cameras, motion-sensitive, hidden in plain sight. I called the county, confirmed no permits were filed for the event. I phoned my lawyer, then code enforcement. I printed photos from the wedding, every car plate, every guest, every Union VY Ted face. Maureen had thrown a wedding on my land, and I was going to make her regret it. The backyard was a mess. Trampled grass, plastic flutes in the bushes, a soggy napkin in the pool. A white heel was stuck in my flower bed, the gazebo still standing like a taunt. I picked up a half-eaten sandwich and shook my head. It wasn't the mess that got me. It was the mindset someone truly believed this was fine. I spread the deed across my dining table, its red-inked boundaries screaming ownership. The pre-VYS owner, a gruff guy named Walt, had warned me about Maureen. "She thinks the sun rises when she opens her blinds," he'd said, chuckling. He'd once fought the HOA over this same land when they tried to claim it for a community garden. He built a fence, and poured a concrete pad to shut them down. Now it was my turn to carry the torch. I drove to the county assessor's office, got fresh zoning maps, and confirmed the HOA had no claim to my backyard. At City Code Enforcement, I learned that events with over 50 guests needed a permit. Maureen had filed nothing. Fines were possible. I took the regulations and a complaint form, but held off filing. I was building a case, not a tantrum. Maureen's HOA newsletters were my next target. Her latest one vaguely mentioned creative spaces for community events, no specifics, no permission. I crafted a fake feedback form, styled like her own, asking if neighbors wanted more pool events or limited HOA access to private amenities. I slipped 20 copies into the clubhouse suggestion box. 2 days later, I overheard neighbors buzzing about seasonal ceremonies at select residences, my residence. Maureen had taken the bait, thinking it was grassroots support. She didn't know every form was another nail in her coffin. At the next HOA meeting, Maureen stood at the clubhouse podium, all smiles and navy blazer, praising the wedding's success and winking at me as if I'd signed off on it. I stood up, voice steady, and said, "I didn't give permission. I wasn't asked. What happened was illegal." The room froze. Maureen laughed it off, saying I'd watched and didn't object. "I didn't object," I said, "because I was gathering EVY Denke." Her smile vanished. I sat down, letting the silence choke her confidence. She showed up at my door the next morning with a thank you card and a cheap bottle of wine, claiming the bride's parents were grateful. I asked how she got my address. "You're in the HOA," she said, confused. "But my backyard isn't," I shot back. She brushed it off, but I saw her flinch. I tossed her gifts in the garage trash and added her VY sit to my EVY Denke folder, along with drone footage of the wedding someone posted online. My lawyer called it a slam-dunk case of property misuse and misrepresentation. I told him to draft a notice of damages, but hold off. I wanted Maureen to feel safe, to keep swinging her clipboard like a scepter. She didn't stop. Landscapers, hired with HOA funds, showed up to measure my pool area for a pergola. I emailed the contractor with my deed and a trespassing warning, copying Maureen. Her reply was a masterclass in condescension, all community spirit and flexible boundaries. I printed it, added it to the folder. Then she put up a sign, "Community Event Space, pending approval." I ripped it down and left it at her mailbox with a note, "No approval granted." She called an emergency meeting, inviting her loyalists to push her beautification plans. I crashed it, holding up my survey map and asking if anyone knew the difference between HOA land and mine. No one did. "There'll be no events here," I said, "ever. Try again and I'll sue." The room shifted. Maureen's charm cracked. Code enforcement tagged her gazebo and lights as illegal structures. Neighbors whispered. Maureen sent a bill for post-event cleanup, due lot $200 for trash and water usage. I tacked it to a post with the violation notices, circled the amount in red, and wrote, "You owe me." Her confidence withered. At the final HOA meeting, I laid it all out. Deed survey, photos, drone shots, and a due lot $12,500 invoice for damages. Gasps echoed. Maureen stammered, claiming it was a private arrangement. I asked if she'd signed anything as HOA president. She didn't answer. The board president promised action. I left, knowing I'd won. Maureen's house went up for sale days later. No goodbye, no fanfare. The HOA issued new rules requiring notarized consent for private property events. A new president, Martin, brought me a re-VY set agreement excluding my land from community use. I signed it, not out of kindness, but to close the book. I drained the pool, posted no trespassing signs, and added cameras and a locked gate. I planted sunflowers along the fence, tall and defiant. At a barbecue, I hosted in VY Ted guests only Maureen dared to walk in, accusing me of hypocrisy. My cousin, a zoning board member, and a councilman shut her down. She left, tail tucked. The pool sparkled again, the grass grew back, and the neighborhood learned a lesson. Respect isn't assumed, it's earned. I framed a photo from my barbecue, my cousin, the councilman, laughing by the grill. It sits by my dad's flag, a quiet trophy. I planted a red maple where Maureen's decorations once hung. It'll grow tall, its roots deep in my land. A reminder that some battles don't need noise, just truth, patience, and a line you refuse to let anyone cross.